Artificial intelligence is going to take over your life and turn the world upside down. Is this just another wave of media-induced hysteria? On today's AI Capitalist, we're going to learn what artificial intelligence actually is. We're going to talk about the two main types of artificial intelligence that are revolutionizing industries all around the world. And as always, we'll keep our focus right on the profits. Watch this video for some new ideas you can bring back into your organization to make it leaner, faster, and better. I'm Evan Goldstein, data scientist and licensed professional engineer. I'm building AI capitalists, bridge the gap between computer scientists and the world of business operations. Before we go too far, we should start by figuring out what artificial intelligence actually is. Now, the dictionary definition of AI is simply that AI is a capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. By that rationale, my simple hand calculator could be considered artificial intelligence. It can solve arithmetic problems faster and better than an intelligent human can. Back in 1960, when everyone was using slide rules, it would have been a mind-blowing breakthrough to see one of these. But we get used to technology so quickly. As we'll see later in this episode, right now apps like ChatGPT and Google Bard are blowing people's minds. But in a few years, once you've integrated these tools into your daily life, they probably won't be any more interesting than the hand calculator. How do you figure out if we've actually achieved artificial intelligence? Like, what does that mean? Well, Alan Turing, who invented the computer to break the Nazi codes in the Second World War, set up a simple test to determine whether an artificial intelligence algorithm had actually achieved artificial intelligence. The test requires a human judge to engage in a natural language conversation with both a human and with a machine, not knowing which is which. This would be his version of like a chatbot, with a human being next to a chatbot running on ChatGPT. The conversations typically happen through text, so the judge can't rely on visual or auditory cues. The objective here is that the judge can't consistently distinguish between the machine's responses and the human's responses. And if that's the case, then the machine is said to have passed the Turing test and demonstrated a level of artificial intelligence that simulates human conversation convincingly.
Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal. Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
Hello, Hal, do you read me?
Affirmative, Dave. I read you.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
I think you know what the problem is just as well as I do.
What are you talking about, Hal?
This mission is too important for me to allow you to jeopardize it. I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me, and I'm afraid that's something I cannot allow to happen.
Passing the Turing test requires not only natural language processing, but also the ability to understand context, display creativity, and to simulate human-like reasoning. Before we can see if technology has passed the Turing test, let's see where the industry is now. So there are two broad categories of contemporary artificial intelligence. The first is narrow AI, which is also sometimes called weak AI. Now, narrow AI focuses on one specific task. It can be very precise, very accurate, and very quick within that specific task, but it can't go outside of the narrow limitations that it's programmed for. Imagine you're running a manufacturing plant and you're constantly seeking ways to optimize your production process and to reduce your downtime. Narrow AI is like having a specialized tool in your toolkit. You can profit from narrow AI systems in a number of ways. For example, quality control. You could use image recognition algorithms to inspect products as they fly by on your assembly line. These systems can determine even the tiniest defects to ensure higher product quality and minimize waste. Secondly, you could use narrow AI for predictive maintenance. Narrow AI can analyze incoming sensor data from your machinery to predict when maintenance is needed before failure, and this can prevent costly breakdowns and downtime. You can also use narrow AI for inventory management. A well-validated narrow AI can precisely forecast demand to optimize your inventory levels, ensuring that you have the right amount of raw materials on hand while minimizing excess stock. Narrow AI is generally limited to the data it's trained on and the context in which it's trained. I covered some of the specific cases where narrow AI systems went off the rails because they've been poorly trained in a previous video. All of these systems can reduce cost and add value to your process. And if you feel that you're gaining value from this episode of AI Capitalist, I would urge you to please hit the like button. By doing so, you're telling YouTube to spread this content to others, and you're letting me know that this is the content you like and I should make more of it. We covered the first type of AI called narrow AI. Now, the second type of AI is, you probably guessed it, wide AI, also called strong AI. This is also being called artificial general intelligence, or AGI. This is a system of artificial intelligence which can understand and learn any intellectual task that a human being can. This intelligence has generative capabilities, which means that it can go outside of the narrow parameters that it was programmed inside of. It should be clear right here, right now, that nobody has developed AGI yet. All the big players in the tech world are striving to create AGI, but what we have now doesn't meet the basics of the Turing test. But we do have generative, not general, artificial intelligence. Generative artificial intelligence can come up with unique solutions to responses that go beyond the initial parameters of its programming, but it's not yet able to pass the Turing test. Think about the conversations that you may have had with ChatGPT. It gets the grammar right, and sometimes it gets the feel of conversing with a real person. Once you start to push past those limits, you can find the weaknesses. You can test this yourself. Just ask one of the chatbots a question or wait for its response. Then ask it how many words were in its response. So then copy and paste the response into an outside software like Word and get a real word count. And notice the huge difference in the number of words that it thinks it has versus the number of words that it actually has. It's trying to give you an answer that you want to hear. It's going to spit out a number because it knows you want to hear a number. But it doesn't have the sort of, common sense to understand what it is that you're saying. It is therefore not general. It is not AGI. Also, anything involving emotional intelligence is way beyond chatbots' capabilities. Someone I know once asked ChatGPT to write a eulogy for her late father. And as it was writing about it, it went into how happy she was that her father had passed away. She wrote back to ChatGPT saying, well, but I'm sad my father passed away. And then GPT wrote back, yes, I can see why that would make you sad, and it rewrote the whole eulogy. Despite its weakness, the technology that has been developed in pursuing wide AI does have enormous capabilities. Here are a few areas where apps using wide AI are being used to increase profitability in business settings right now. Let's start off with human resources. AI is revolutionizing HR by handling tasks like resume screening, candidate interviews, and even employee performance evaluations. It can identify high-value potential candidates, and it can suggest personalized career development plans for existing staff. This is going to become more and more relevant as AI starts to eliminate certain basic positions. People are going to need to be retrained within the company to fulfill new tasks involving artificial intelligence. Take, for example, customer service. Wide AI-powered virtual assistants and chatbots are handling complex customer inquiries. They're also providing nuanced responses to resolve issues autonomously without the need for an employee. Wide AI can also assist employees by answering questions and automating routine tasks in research and development and in research-intensive industries. Wide AI is accelerating innovation by analyzing vast amounts of scientific literature and by suggesting hypotheses. As we said earlier, wide AI is not actually able to pass the Turing test. So unlike narrow AI, which provides precise, discrete answers, the chatbots that we work with now are more general. One problem that this can generate when using it within the scientific fields would be, I've asked AI chatbots to review scientific papers. Now the chatbot is able to summarize the paper in an understandable form and repeat back a basic structured summary, but it can only work with the words that are actually written in the paper. The chatbot can't critically look at the paper and try to piece it apart and put it back together again. The chatbots, as they stand now, are not able to discover potential flaws in how the data for the paper was collected, or to point out false or erroneous conclusions made by the paper that might go against the actual data that appears in the paper. But if you can think of any other applications that you've had where you've broken past the limits of general AI and ended up in an AI la-la land, you can tell me about them in the comments below. I'd be interested to learn about it. What can you bring back to your business from all this? Well, narrow AI has become ubiquitous. It's entered into all the areas of business operations, and at this point it's tried, tested, and true. But it's limited to specifics of how its program is trained to operate. Wide AI is more broad and more closely mimics how human beings interact with the world, but in reality, a fully functional AGI is just an aspiration. When you're using generative AI technology, really you need to be really careful about how much you trust its results. It probably shouldn't be applied to supercritical areas until the technology improves. Definitely test it thoroughly before applying it in client-facing settings. And if you want more examples of how both narrow and wide AI are being applied in business settings, you can subscribe to AI Capitalist and stay tuned for updates.